Welcome to my work solutions for OCR Higher. As you can see, it's from the summer of 2024. And because it's OCR, we call it paper 5, the middle paper of the 3. And because of that, it's the non-calc section. There we go. So number 1, when you are dividing decimals, just multiply by 10, 100 or 1,000. In this case, I'd rather be dividing by 3. I've made my number there 100 times bigger, so multiply 1.2 by 100. And the answer to each of these will be the same. Work out one, you work out both. And it's 40. So what we want for number 2, what's the important information? Finds the positive difference. Best way to do that is do biggest number take away smallest. Gaps here will be 9 minus 2. 9 take away 5. 5 minus 2. We'll get a 7 in there and a 4 in there for a couple of easy marks. Find the probability that Kai takes 2 cards with a difference. That is, let's just get a different pen. That is an even or a factor of 10. Well, let's do the evens first. There's 4 of them, but factors of 10 includes the 5s. I've got 6 circled numbers out of 12 numbers in the grid. Cancel it down if you want, no one cares. Number 3, very waffly question. One line at a time. Don't do what the instructions say. If you read this question as a whole, you're going to just dig your way into trouble. Top line, only one thing we care about. 200-mile journey. 1/10 of. Just stop. 1/10 of the journey divided by 10 means Ryan's doing 20 miles at 40 mph. If you're covering 40 miles an hour and you want to do 20 miles, that'll just take you half an hour. Move on. Third line, 40% of. Stop right there. 10% of 200. Times it by 4, because we want 40%. So Ryan's now doing 80 miles at 50 miles per hour. Bit trickier to work out than the first one. Not a problem. Consult the DST triangle just to make sure we're after time. We need to do distance divided by speed. 80 divided by 50. The zeros will cancel. That is 1 3/5 of an hour. Now just stop for a sec. We don't really talk about fifths of an hour. We do quarters and halves. We don't do fifths. But it's easy enough. Just take your 60 minutes, divide it by 5, so you know that 1/5 of an hour is 12 minutes. So 3/5 is 36 minutes. Next, the remainder of the journey. We could work out how far it is, doesn't seem to care. The rest of the journey takes 1 hour 30. Switch pens. That means we've got first part of the journey, 30 minutes. Final part of the journey, 1 hour 30. That's 2 hours. Middle part, another hour. And the 36 minutes on the end. Ryan leaves home at 8:50 in the morning. We need to add it on. 8 hours plus 3 hours takes us to 11. But then we've got to add 36 minutes on. 10 minutes takes us up to midday. So it's going to be 12:26. Part B, I'll verbalise it. I'm not going to write it all out. Write down an assumption. Anything like he never actually is able to slow down. He's able to travel at the speed limit for the entire journey. So any assumption like that where he's not slowed down, there's no traffic jams, there's no road blockages, there's no diversions, etc. Anything to do with slowing him down. Number 4, yep, I've cheated. I've popped stuff on already, got my line of best fit. Part A, describe the type of correlation. Don't forget that's different to describe the relationship. If you're asked to describe the relationship, you have to get in the words like science and mathematics. For part A, you only need one word. Don't worry about strong or weak. It's positive. That's all they cared about. Part B, one science, etc., etc. Circle the point. There's your score down here. Not that one. Your score down here is a low math score and a reasonably decent science score. So next bit, part C, line of best fit. You'll notice I've drawn these what they call gates. On the mark scheme, the examiners, when they mark these, they'll have an overlay, and your line of best fit must go through these gates. They've given those coordinates. So, for example, at 9:11 and 9:22, they're the gates. Your line of best fit must go through both. It can go further, but it can't stop shorter, can't dip below, can't go above. Estimate the score. Someone who is 28 in science, by pure coincidence, I've done this for the foundation paper and the higher paper because it's on both this one. I get 28 in both instances. 28 and 28. It's just one of them things. Explain why using the scatter diagram for a student who scores 60 in science may be unreliable. That comes down to the, if you want to do the posh words, poor extrapolation. If you want to do better words, there's no data available for students scoring 60. It kind of stops at 50. And that's why it's unreliable. Basically, there's no data up there. Final part, part E, but I'll stay on here. It asks for the percentage of pupils who score fewer than 30 marks in both of them. So you've got to count up. Now that student there scores exactly 30, not included. You count up the crosses in this box. There are 7 of them. That means there are 7 out of 20. And there's a variety of ways of turning that into a percentage. I'll go for the denominator of 100, times in both by 5. 35 out of 100 is 35%. Other techniques for that are also available. Number 5, again, yeah, I've cheated. I've drawn it already. It says closer to AB than AC. If you want to know where is closer, you need to know where is halfway. That's a perpendicular bisector. You need to set your pencil and compass to a reasonably sensible distance, plonk your metal bit on A, drawing roughly a quarter circle. Pick up your compass, plonk the metal bit here, draw a little arc, about 1/8 of a circle. Pick up your compass, back to the other cross, draw another arc, and you get a cross up here that's obviously now neater than mine. You grab your ruler, you join them up, you know where the halfway is, but you're asked to shade which is closer to AB. Don't take too long shading, you've got more questions to get on with. Speaking of which, density, mass, volume. DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles. You've got the volume, you've got the density. By rounding to one significant figure, estimate the mass. Oh, sorry, you've got the density, you've got the volume, so mass is going to equal density 8.9, that's 9 to one significant figure, and 198 is 200 to one sig fig. Get them timesed, move on. Number 7. Strange bit of a question here, but it is what it is. A bottle contains 1 3/4 litres of cordial. You could consider that as a top-heavy fraction, or if you wanted to work in millilitres, you're more than welcome, but I'm sticking to fractions. To make orange squash, 1 part of cordial is mixed with 7 parts of water. Cordial is therefore 1/8. Water is 7 of the parts, so 7/8. Cups that can hold. Let's just get on with it. The question is 7/4 is how much we've got. We're using it as 1/8 parts. The water just comes out of a tap. So we just need to multiply it. We're really dividing by an 1/8 to find out how many 8s go into 7/4. But dividing by an 1/8, KFC, keep, change, flip. We're really going to just multiply by 8/1. And you could have done this by counting, picture ways, and so on. Which means for this question, we can make 14 litres of squash. Okay. Stop. Work out the maximum number of cups. Each cup is 1/6. So we're doing the same again. We're doing 14, which is 14/1. We are dividing by a 6th. Or in other words, multiplying by 6. And the over ones, no one cares anymore. Just work out 14 times 6. And that means we're making 84 cups. Number 8. Write down the percentage increase when y is in. If you increase something by 100%, the logic is you double it. So if you wanted to write the formula, you'd go from having a constant times x to having a constant times 2x. So write down, because it's direct proportion, if you increase one side by 100%, if you double it, you're increasing the other side by 100%. Move on though. If you increase one side by 100%, z is inversely proportional to x. Write down the percentage increase in z when x is increased by 100%. If you double the bottom in this case, you're essentially halving the value of your z because you're doubling the bottom. That means the percentage decrease, you're losing half, so it's 50%. Quite a weird little pair of 1 markers there, but I hope that makes sense. Number 9, double equations of motion, but ultimately it's substitution and bid mass. A particle has initial velocity 0. U equals 0. It accelerates at 3. A equals 3. For 4 seconds, time equals 4. Find the distance travelled. So the distance travelled is s. The problem is, in the bottom equation, we'd like to work out s. We only know u, a and t. We don't know v. If you've got 2 unknowns in a question, you've got a problem. You need to either find one out or have simultaneous equations, but we don't need to worry. We look at the first equation. Final velocity equals initial velocity plus 3 times 4. So we get 12. We move on. Second equation. Sub all the numbers in. V squared is 12 squared, 144, equals U squared, that's 0. Just going to ignore it. Plus 2 times A times S. 2 times A is 6, times S is unknown. There we go. Easy formula. 144 into 6. Sorry, 6 into 144. You know what I meant. You could know it's 24 because 12 12s and just double it. Or as I've done, do bus stop. And you'll get the answer of 24 either way. But yeah, it's substitution and big maths. Number 10, setting up equations and solving them. It's equilateral. It's a perimeter question. All the sides are 14. The total perimeter is 42. Here, if the bottom line is A plus 5, so is the top. If the right hand is A, and these perimeters are equal. Perimeter of the rectangle, there are 4 A's and a couple of 5's making 10, equals the perimeter of the triangle. You've got it set up, get it solved. Subtracting 10 from both sides, we divide by 4, and 32 divided by 4 tells us that A is 8, and we haven't got anything to do with that, so we just move on. Some vectors, don't get put off by these, I know people don't like, but these are the better vectors questions. Just remember, they are movements. Vector A is left 3, up 1. Left 3 is minus 3 on the top. Up 1 is a positive 1 on the bottom. Write a column vector that is different in direction but has the same length. A reminder, to find the length of a vector, you do Pythagoras. That squared plus that squared equals that squared. So the length of that distance there is root 10. You need to insert any vector where the components add up to 10. Just keep it simple. Don't be a smart aleck. 3, 1. Because from there, 3 along, 1 up. It's a different direction, but it's definitely the same length. I've just more or less mirror imaged it. So yeah, 3, 1, minus 1, 3, whatever. But as long as you square and add, and they make 10. On the grid below, draw the vector A minus B. Let's do the algebra first to make sure we're drawing it. A is that there. Let's do the working out up here. There's A. If you take away a vector, the minuses become pluses and so on. 2B, as you can see, is 4 down. This is only 1B. So it's 0 across and it's 2 down. If you do the tops, minus 3 take nothing, doesn't change. 1 minus minus 2. And that's the vector you need to draw. Minus 3, 3. Pick a starting point somewhere towards the bottom right. Minus 3 means left 3. And then up 3. There's my vector, A minus B. I took a few minutes for that, but if something's worth 3 marks, job's worth doing well. It's not bad if you just follow this step by step. You could have done it diagrammatically and drawn them both end to end, by the way. Mark scheme's very generous on that. But for me, a bit of both, really. 12A, waffle, waffle, waffle. Sasha Invest, if you read all that, the key to it is she lacks the knowledge of what compound interest is. You invest £1,000, 5% You will indeed get £50. Great. But is Sasha correct? She's not. She's not. She's doing simple interest. She'll get £50 forever. So because you could put she has calculated simple interest £50 a year or words to that effect. I've gone down the route of in year 2, the extra £50 also gets 5% interest. If you want to be a smart aleck and work it out, 10% is fiver. So she'd get an extra £2.50. Sometimes the best way to show how someone's wrong is to do it correctly. Part B, a very weird looking, it's technically exponential decay if you want to be posh about these things, but you've got a formula. V, which is the y-axis, N is the x-axis. Look at this coordinate here. That's the coordinate 0 along, 8,000 up. N is 0, V is 8,000. Stick them in. Replace V with 8,000. Replace A, well, we haven't got anything to do with that. But B to the power of 0 is 1. Anything to the power of 0 is 1. And so we get A is 8,000. Now we know that. We use the formula again for this second coordinate. That coordinate is N equals 1 and V equals 6,400. So let's start again. Replace V with 6400. A is 8,000 as we knew, and it's B to the power of 1. Just divide both sides by 8,000. It's easier than you think without a calc, because you divide top and bottom by 100. 64 over 80. If you divide them by 8, you could go 4/5, but I prefer 8/10 because that's easy knowledge for a decimal. On we go. Number 13, solving an inequality. When you solve any quadratic when it's equal to 0, you can use the formula. It doesn't tell us how we should do it, so use the formula if you want. Just B is 0, but it is our old friend, the difference of 2 squares, which means our solutions are 10 and minus 10. But are they solutions? No. Most places will refer to them as critical values. I prefer to draw a sign diagram. Minus 10's down here, 10's up here, and now go back to the inequality. We are interested where our quadratic is above or equal to 0. That's to the right of 10, so greater than or equal to 10. And it's also to the left of negative 10. So that's less than or equal to negative 10. As I say, sign diagrams all day long for me, but don't refer to them as x equals. It's not quite right, but you don't need to worry about that. It's more about the final answer. Number 14, yeah, it's fractions, but don't start looking at differences between each one. It's not one of them questions. Look what's happening on top. 2, 4, 6, 8. It's literally your 2 times table, and in algebra, you write it as 2n. On the bottom, it's going up in 4s. But it's not quite the 4 times table. It's the 4 times table, but it's 1 bigger. That's all it is. Number 15, expanding triple brackets, also known as a cubic. Pick any 2 brackets you want and expand them however you want. If it's grid, sight, Beginners in as out as enders was one of the ways I was taught at school. I'm going to stick with the loops. X times 4x. Notice how I do the numbers then and leave a gap, because I'd like to do the x terms in my head and simplify them as I go. That loop is 12x added to 1x, 13x. I move then. I'm not a fan of expanding a cubic using loops. That's rubbish, but who cares? Do a grid, because there's 6 loops going on. There's easy marks here, folks. It's not tricky. It's a nice 3 marker. If you can expand 2 brackets and simplify, you can expand 3. So take your time. 3 marks. It's well worth 4 minutes of your time. We now need to multiply everything on top by x. That'll give us 4x cubed, 13x squared, and 3x. And now everything needs to be multiplied by -2. So double it and change the sign. Let's simplify him. Cubic. Nothing to simplify. Diagonal though, we've got 13x squared. Take away 8 of them. We're left with 5 of them. -26x plus 3x. We have -23. And the constant -6 does not simplify. Number 16. Volume scale factor. If you're going from shape A to shape B, the multiplier in terms of volume is 27 over 8. You just simply divide by the number you want and times by the number, divide by the number you have and times by the number you want. Now that's a volume scale factor. It's in 3D. We're needing linear scale factor because linear is height. Your job to get the linear scale factor is cube root. And you can see they've given you nice numbers. Cube root of 27, cube root of 8. Your linear scale factor is a very friendly 3/2 or 1.5. The height of prism A is 6. So we're going from A to B, not vice versa. 6 times, as I say, either 3/2 or 1.5. However you do it, you end up hopefully at 9 centimetres. 17 is one of them questions that kind of, sort of looks okayish, but it's got a lot going on and it's not bad when you spot it. There's a couple of ways of doing it, but it is a strange one. The first problem is it's mixing fractions and recurring decimals. Let's deal with the recurring decimal. P is 1.2. Ignore the 1. 0.2 recurring. You may know straight away that that is 2/9. You might not. If you don't, follow the process where you take your recurring decimal and turn it into a fraction. So bottom take away top, and we get x to be 2/9, which helps us out because it tells us that P is 1 2/9. Let's write that as top heavy. It tells us that Q is 1 2/3. And R is unknown. That's what you're trying to find out. But there's the key. Q is the midpoint. Now you've got 2 choices here. You can either do Q take away P, use your fractions knowledge. That will find the difference. You can then take that answer and add it on. I've gone for a slightly different way of saying that Q being the midpoint, as in Q being in the middle of them, it's halfway between them. So I'm actually going to say that if I double Q, I get 10 over 3. That will be the same as 11 ninths minus R. Sorry, plus R. And that means to find R, and I need to do 10 thirds, which I'm going to rewrite as 30 over 9 for obvious reasons. Treble the top, treble the bottom. Take away 11 ninths. And hey presto, 19 over 9, or 2 1/9. But as I say, you could have done it by subtracting and adding. It's all good. Number 18. We're into endgame now, we're into tricky questions, but do not get put off by these, seriously. It's one of those situations where, yeah, you don't know any numbers, it's all in terms of letters and nonsense. Trust the process. Everything cancels. You always end up with an answer that's like R equals a half, and this is one of them that does that. A sphere has radius x. Let's write it down. 4/3 times pi times the radius, which is x, cubed. They're equal, or I'm equal. The cone's volume is 1/3 times pi times the radius squared, which is capital R squared, times the height, which we now know to be 2R. Let's tidy a few things up. Divide both sides by pi. Multiply both sides by 3. Let's tidy up the left, see where we are. Let's tidy up the right while we expand the brackets. R squared times 2R, 2R cubed. Now we look at the question. Write R in terms of x. It wants the final answer to be R equals. Let's divide both sides by 2. And to get R, let's cube root both sides. The mark scheme does accept that as a final answer, but you might have split them up because the cube root of x cubed is just x. So it's x times the cube root of 2, or the cube root of 2 times x, or you could have left your answer like that. Mark scheme accepts them all. Number 19. Got to be honest, quite a strange one in this position. If you turn something 20 degrees that way, and then 70 degrees that way, the difference is 20. You've ended up 50 to the right. That's what it wants, described fully. It's a rotation around the origin. You've got to get that bit in. And it's 50 degrees clockwise. I'll obviously let you write it out in full. I've done it on my worked answers. This word invariant comes up quite a lot. If you do forget, don't forget what the word vary means. If something varies, it changes. So invariant means stays the same. If that rectangle is reflected in the line y equals 4, which I've just scooted on there, which are the coordinates of the vertices that don't move? If you're on the mirror line and you reflect, you do not move. It's those two, 1, 4 and 5, 4, because the others would reflect up there somewhere, so they vary. Number 20, lots of ways to crack this one. in terms of, because when you're trying to find the perimeter of the shape, what you do need are angles at the centre. Either the reflex angle there or the angle, and so on. That's your logic. That's what you need. We're after that angle. There's a few ways of doing it. I chose to chop it in half, and I am a fan, big advocate, redraw. The angle in the bottom right is 30. The hypotenuse is 12. That angle up there, therefore, is 60. What does that tell us in terms of, well, I'd like to know that side there, because then I can double it, and I've got B to A, because that's a half of B there. We're kind of, let's call it the midpoint, actually. Come on, pen. Midpoint, midpoint, and A. So if we get MA, hypotenuse adjacent from the 30, we can use good old SOHCAHTOA. It's a K. We want the adjacent, it's multiply. Cos of 30. Yep, you need to learn your exact trig values multiplied by 12. Cos of 30 is root 3 over 2. The over 2 means divide the 12 by 2. That is the length of M to A, so the length of B to A is double that. So we'll bank that and come back to it. Now we go, this angle of 60 is there. The angle is now 120, and so the reflex angle is 240. Or if you prefer to think of it, it's 2/3 of a circle. So we actually have the distance B to A. It's 12 root 3. We just double that 6. We now need all this shebang up here. How do we find that? We have the formula for the circumference of a circle. It is 2 times pi times the radius, which is 12, but it's not a full circle. It's 2/3 of it. Let's get it worked out in terms of pi. 2 times 12 is 24, times 2 is 48, divided by 3 is 16. And we're home and dry. Give your answer in its simplest terms in that form. A root B, 12, don't forget we're doubling that. That was only M to A. So it's 12 root 3 added to the curved bit, 16 pi, and you've earned your 7 marks, well deserved. Number 21, points of intersection is simultaneous equations. These are in the form, there's no substitution here, you're not whacking one into the other. You've told what y equals, you're told something else that y equals. We can say that 3x squared must be equal to 5 minus 2x. Looks like a quadratic. We can solve it if we get it equal to 0. Add 2x to both sides. Take away 5. And you can, if you want to, use a quadratic formula and get your solutions. Feel free, the numbers aren't that bad. But I'm going to use the AC method. Factorise and solve. A times C is 3 times negative 5. There we go. Chop my page. 3x squared on the end, minus 5 on the other end. I need a pair of numbers, which I'm going to whack in front of those x's, and these numbers must multiply to make minus 15, add together to make positive 2. Rack your brain for a bit, use the spare room down there if you want to. It ends up with a negative 3 and a positive 5. And like I've said in other videos, they could be the other way around. When we factorise the left-hand side, we take a 3x out. When we factorise the right-hand side, they've only got a 5 in common. And the fact that they're equal not only tell you you've done it right, but that's one of your brackets. That's the other of your brackets. You've factorised it. Chopping my page in two. One solution is x equals 1. That'll be easy to muck around with. Unfortunately, we'll have a difficult one here. Negative, because you changed the sign. Negative 5/3. So as you can see, if you slot them in, we're halfway there. We need the y's. Your choice, you can sub them in to that equation or that equation. It's entirely up to you. I chose the first one to avoid squaring this awkward number. So when x equals 1, y will equal 5 minus 2 lots of 1. That's 5 minus 2. 3. Slot it in. And now the slightly trickier one. Y will equal 5. And it's take away 2 times minus. So it's a plus 10/3. How do you do 5 plus 10/3? Well, 10/3 is 3 1/3. 5 plus 3. And you can either leave it as 8 1/3, or if you really want to, make it top heavy so it's a bit similar to the other thing. On we go. I'm being brave. I'm willing to draw some diagrams live instead of doing them and copying them. And the reason is, this first one doesn't really matter as long as it follows the exponential shape. And you know, when it crosses the x-axis, that's when x equals 0. 8 to the power of 0 is 1. Unless they are translated, all these exponential curves cross at 1. Part B. Take a deep breath. I'm going to attempt this live. The graph of cos x must start at 1, which means it needs to be finishing at that position there. Try and get your little roller coaster. I slipped. Try and get your little roller coaster so it doesn't dip below -1. It's a good job this would be in a pencil in an exam. That's not bad for electronic pen use. Indicate any values where it crosses the x-axis. It's always split into quadrants. So there to there is a quarter of the graph. It's a quarter of 360. Minimum point will be at 180 and 3/4 will be at 270. Finally, Venn diagrams for the finish. One person is chosen at random from those that watch athletics. Just these people here. There are 16 to choose from. Find the probability that the random person selected watches only one other sport. That person in the middle watches football and golf. That's not one other. It's the 4 and the 5 that we're interested in. Part B. 2 of the 50 people are chosen at random. Show the probability that one of them watches football while the other watches only golf. You've got to consider this. We could select football first, then golf, but we could also get golf and football. Now, the numerators, if you were doing a probability tree, which you're more than welcome to, they're just going to have numbers like 10/50 and stuff like that. Doesn't matter. It's fine. Stuff's going to cancel, by the way, and you've got the answer to aim for. But when you've got the numerators are just going to be 10 because they're the football, and they're going to be 7 because they're the golf, the numerators are going to be 10 and 7, 7 and 10. In other words, let's just double the probability. 2 lots. The probabilities are going to be first person's out of 50, second person's out of 49, and the numerators are the 9 and the 7. No, 10 and the 7. In any order you want. But everything cancels. Take away them. 10 over 50 is 1 over 5. 7 over 49 is 1 over 7. Top times top, doubled. Bottom times bottom, doubled. You only double the top. I went for a blanket then there. Confused myself. It's been a long day. I've just done 2 papers back to back. I'm about to do a third, so I don't hold my breath for that one. Anyway, time to shut up, waffle over. Hope that helps, folks, for the paper 5. Might see you on paper 6 for the more calculator work. See ya.